Welcome back to another edition of the Net Report Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is my co-host, Richie Schneiderite. Richie, we got another football commitment in the class of 2024 yesterday. The Rutgers basketball team leaves for their international trip tomorrow. We have another commitment for the basketball program, it never really left, it seems, or maybe did for a little while. And then got some training camp in full swing. So let's just talk right off the bat with this new football commitment.
So Edd Guerrier, if I want to pronounce that correctly. I'm just guessing at this point, I guess. I can go back and check on my sources and make sure that's correct. And he seems like an interesting running back prospect. He's number 2 running back in their class because Gabriel Winovich is also coming in, who's Michigan native / now New Jersey high school product. Edd Guerrier, I've looked at multiple networks. So he's a 5'7" on one network. He's a 5'10" on our network. I was told that 5'10" was from the Rivals camp this spring. Then you go talk to the kid, and he's like, "Hey, I'm 5'8" and a half. I'm almost 5'9" actually." So I'm like, "Okay, so everyone has it wrong completely." He's short, he's shifty, he's quick. He's a kid out of Florida, typical Florida athlete. Chose Rutgers over offers. Actually, Rutgers offered immediately after Rutgers offered the other day, and immediately after, with a conversation with Greg on Sunday, he committed on the spot. Similar build to Jashawn Benjamin, a kid who they took last class from Pahok, Florida. Pahok? I'm not sure which one. My pronunciations are off today. I've had half a coffee, so I'm getting there. Now we got puppy pod going on.
Sorry, he is losing it downstairs.
That's fine. Like I said, hashtag golden retriever, hashtag dogs of YouTube, and look at our views just jump. So I was saying before, I don't know if you heard, you probably didn't hear me, but so the kid told me he's 5'8" and a half. One site has him listed 5'7". We have him listed at 5'10" from our camp in spring. So it's a guessing game.
That's wild. So you guys measured him in at 5'10", and some people saying he measured it at 5'7".
Yeah, so that's the thing. So we don't have our camps are all volunteer based. So I don't know who the hell measured him, but some volunteer measured him, and
they just took his word for it.
Yeah, they're just like, hey, yeah, it's 5'10". That's what they wrote down. So
yeah.
And they did the whole
trust me, bro scale.
Yeah. No, we have the actual scales and stuff and the weights and all that, and it's just I don't know who measured him at 5'10", but you're off. That's what you get for hiring volunteers. But no, he's a pretty good prospect. He's small, he's shifty. He's I know people want him to be a Deuce Vaughn type running back, but I don't think that's realistic. But he does also have ties to New Jersey. His sister and uncles lived in New Jersey. He told me yesterday, and I didn't add it to the article yet because I've been lazy and it was late night. He watched Kyle Monangai grow up, watched Kyle Monangai play growing up, watched Isaiah Pacheco, who said he was his favorite running back ever at Rutgers, who I know you just mentioned off the pod, but I'm saying on here too. Pacheco's just popularity's just jumped insanely. He's the top 25 jersey sales, you said, for the NFL this year. So it's this is a pretty good guy. He's also pretty physical and kind of thick for that size. He's 195. It's pretty big for a 5'8" and a half kid. And then now some people you see 5'8" and a half, 195, you're probably like, yeah, that guy's chunky. This kid's a little ripped. So he's physical. He's good. He rushed for 1,400 plus yards last year, 20 something touchdowns, averaged almost 8 yards a carry. This kid is legit, and I don't know why schools are passing on him other than the fact that the height thing might be the biggest issue.
Yeah, no, he was super productive. That was the thing that jumped out to me the most is he had just an insane amount of touchdowns last year.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I remembered it being closer to 30 total.
Maybe that's what it was. I might have read it wrong.
I'll take your word for it. So another Florida kid, another kid who he got the offer and committed right away, it sounded like. So
yeah.
We'll see. I mean, I don't know. These off the wall commitments are always just a little confusing, especially when it's oh no, they're done at this position, and then 2 weeks later they send a random offer out and he commits right away. So
yeah.
I mean, under the radar kid for sure.
Yeah, they were waiting to see what Jason Patterson, who ended up at Cincy actually instead of Kentucky, which everyone thought he was going to do, and Yasin Willis, who ended up at Pittsburgh. So kind of waiting on those top 2 targets, see what they did, and obviously they both went elsewhere. And it sounded like they were going to wait till fall to kind of see how these kids performed in the first couple games of the season, because that's just what college coaches do at this point. for late bloomers especially. But this they like this kid a lot. They want to get him in the fold, and it's another Florida kid. I think you're seventh of the class, which would be the highest state producer for this class. Would be Florida. 7 Florida, 2 Michigan, 3 North Carolina, 5 Jersey, and 4 Jersey, and 2 New York, 2 Wisconsin, Ohio. Like this class is all over the map, and it's kind of cool to look at the map. And I'm going to tweet it out before this podcast ends, or maybe right afterwards. We have a map with all the like little pinpoints of where kids are coming from, and it's definitely expanding the state of Rutgers for sure. So the only thing with Florida kids is you gotta keep them committed. That's the biggest worry. So it's definitely not an easy job, but I think this kid might end up staying committed, like most of them.
Yeah, no, that'd be cool. Seeing that map of just like how national the recruiting is right now for the football program.
Yeah.
So let's kind of talk training camp. Is there anything you can talk about, or anything that Greg has said that really stood out to you so far? Or is it still too early in camp to really
sworn to secrecy? No, I can talk a little bit about stuff. Nothing crazy. It was day 1 that we got to watch. I know obviously they practiced this weekend as well, but we were not there because media is not allowed to attend the weekend ones. Next weekend actually will be a scrimmage, so we can attend that one.
Okay.
But no, nothing too crazy. We're going to get the full roster with the heights and weights today, and that's probably my favorite part because I like to actually go in there and dive in and see like who gained 10 to 15 pounds, who lost pounds, who all of a sudden had a growth spurt in college, which does happen from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, what Greg's in terms of the roster, actually, Kier Price moved back to tight end. I know he's a blocking tight end / fullback last year.
Wait, Kier Price did? Defensive lineman?
Yep, he's back at tight end again. So he was a blocker tight end last year. I know when they first came in / fullback, H-back, whatever the hell you want. There's so many different terms for it now. Just call it a fullback. But now they moved him back to defensive line in the spring per the roster. Now he's back as a tight end per the roster yet again for the second time. Dario Jabome. I forget if it's Jabome or Jabome. He's now
Jabome.
at defensive lineman. He's also a former linebacker. Spent time on special teams. I think he's appeared in all 12 games on special teams. So that's something to keep an eye on because Greg usually, as most of you probably know, Greg does that a lot for guys he loves and thinks can contribute in year 2. Put him on special teams, get him used to the speed of the game, and just get him out there and get him some reps because that's the easiest way to just kind of learn, to literally physically be out there and be on the field. Other than that, he talked about the quarterback room, Wimsat, Shiraka, how they're gelling, blah, blah, blah. Wide receiver group, Jaquay Jackson. He mentioned Nassim Brantley, Isaiah Washington. He actually talked about a little bit, which I was a little shocked by. But he did say Isaiah Washington's starting to hit his stride, which could be huge if they could get him something out of him. Chris Long, you mentioned. I'm trying to think. That's pretty much it. He didn't mention like Rochelle or Dremel, but that's the ongoing battle for the slot. There's a giant position battle basically at the wide receiver position that we're not really talking about. I know we kind of slotted Jaquay Jackson as wide receiver 1, which I think that's still fair. But that wide receiver 2 spots where it gets really interesting. Like, can Isaiah Washington step up? Or could Nassim Brantley step up? Could Chris Long just come out of nowhere and just take the job? There's a lot of options there. Then the offensive line group, I know I asked him about this specifically, and I found it a little interesting. So he said he doesn't want to rotate linemen. He wants a solidified 5. But I feel like in the past, maybe it wasn't him, maybe it was Gleason that said that. He wanted 5 to 7 total. So I guess it's a different change in philosophy, and that's partially. I know everyone wants to speculate. That's Flaherty saying that he wants solid 5, and it's like, all right, Flaherty definitely controls the room, but he doesn't control like the offense. So, end of the day, this is Kirk's call probably, and Kirk wants a solidified 5, and I think we kind of know who that solidified 5 is currently. Could someone jump up and take the reins from someone else on the right side? Yeah, probably, but. The other thing is that everyone keeps saying like Curtis Dunlap is a right guard, but if you watch the spring game, he played specifically left guard. So that left side is going to be huge with Holland Pierce and Curtis Dunlap, and should have more on Holland Pierce later on today, tomorrow, maybe the next day. But yeah, that left side's huge. Iron Brown's great, and then it's that right side that's the biggest question mark for me personally, and that's why I asked Greg about it, and we got as much as we could, but not a whole lot going on there with training camp just because it was day one. One thing I did want to mention that I thought was really cool, the day before day one of training camp, Rutgers hosted a CPR and AED training session for college coaches, or not college coaches, youth football coaches throughout New York and New Jersey. And it was more so because of what happened with the Damar Hamlin thing. They wanted to make sure other coaches were prepared and ready to go. God forbid something like that ever happens again. So I thought that was pretty neat, and another chance to get high school coaches on your turf and on your campus. So that's always a good thing too. But this was great for the community and just kind of showing like Rutgers is out there more.
Yeah, and cares and wants kids to be safe. Never a bad thing to have that message out there. We also had three players speak after practice on Thursday.
Yes.
It was Gavin Wimsatt, Jaquay Jackson, and Mo Toure. Was there anything that any of those three players said that stood out? Like, obviously, Toure's coming off an injury. Wimsatt was named starter before training camp. Jaquay Jackson's in his first practice at the Power 5 level. Anything from any of those guys that stood out?
So I'd say probably number one, it's not Wimsatt. I thought it was Wimsatt for the longest time. It's Wimsatt. And I'm like,
okay.
that sounds weird. I don't know if I like that. And you keep it, change it, buddy.
That's he pronounces his name. You gotta
make it Wimsatt. Change it up. Come on.
Wimsatt. All
right. So I found that was interesting. So now I got to change my whole brain to figure out how I can say that correctly. As if my pronunciations weren't off already. But,
yeah, right.
Mo Toure kind of just came out and he someone asked him and they're like linebacker, defensive end, what how are you doing this? Like, what do you like better? Do you have a preference? He's like, I'm a defensive player. And I'm like, oh, all right, Johnny Lankin, here we go. He's basically just like, I'll do whatever it takes to win. And he sounded pretty adamant about that. He loves the fact that he's back on the field. He looks jacked, by the way. He looks like he's not only jacked, like he's packing on pounds, but he's also packing on a ton of muscle too. I think he could honestly legitimately play either. We've seen him play linebacker, and we've seen him grab an interception 2 years ago, mind you. We've seen him play defensive end and be the best edge rusher on the team. So I think there's going to be so many ways you can kind of use him now because he's so big now that I feel like you can almost kind of, like if you're on a third down package and a pass rush package, you might have a line with like him, Kenny Fletcher, Aaron Lewis, and Wesley Bailey on the line and just say, screw it, you four just go. And it's possible he could absolutely dominate opposing quarterbacks. He did say that he bonded a lot with Moses Walker, and that kind of stood out to me because they both similar injury, similar position as well too, and similar builds. Like Moses Walker's ripped too for a second-year player. But Gavin talked about the offense gelling, nothing insane. Jaquay's just happy to be at Rutgers. He mentioned that NIL didn't play a factor. I'm going to say this in the nicest way. I'm just going to call BS on that one a little bit, but to each their own because he entertained Colorado quite a bit.
And Miami and Texas A&M.
Yeah, I mean, kind of weird. What adds up there? But no, coming back, he said the NFL ties to Rutgers between Dave Brock selling them on Calvin Ridley, Julio. He even mentioned Sanu specifically. And I can confirm he was not fed that because, they kind of feed him some stuff before interviews. And it's just how it works with the media. But that one was definitely not fed. He legitimately knew a lot about Mohamed Sanu and loved the fact that these guys all coached NFL teams or NFL players. So that was just a great get. And he's just a very well-spoken kid too. He's not too cocky. He wants to win and he wants to do it at the big stage. So he wants to prove everyone that he can be that wide receiver one. And I really think he's going to be. So other than that, nothing really crazy. We'll have a lot more today though.
You mentioned Toure being jacked. I just want to call out one guy for being an absolutely massive human being, Isaiah Aiton. If anyone has not seen a picture of Isaiah Aiton, we're going to pull it up on the screen here. But go take a look at the picture of him from practice. He's like one of the biggest he's one of the biggest football players I can remember putting on a Rutgers uniform. Like, look at this dude. That's got probably easily the biggest arms on the team. He's just like insane. He's just massive. He looks like an SEC defensive lineman. So just from a, I think Kick said this, like the leading off the bus scale, he's a 10 out of 10 on the guy you want coming off the bus first.
He doesn't even have pads on. Those are spider pads. That's like nothing. It's he's got it. That's the other thing. It's not just him either. Like this team actually looks like a legitimate like Big Ten
Didn't
college
Greg say
football
it's
team.
the strongest team he's ever had?
Yeah. Yep. He said something. Joe Susan came up to him with the strength numbers and said it's the strongest team he's ever had since ever being at Rutgers, not just 2.0 tenure. So this is just, you could see it too. Like you see it on the line, you see it in the trenches, and you're like, all right, holy shit. Then you see like one or two, and it's like, all right, that's what it used to look like. But the whole shit, what over here? Like, damn.
Yeah.
So it is definitely something to keep an eye on because they are going to be stronger up front, and that's going to help the run game, pass game, overall blocking, hopefully.
Yep.
So, yeah, it was a good couple days, or a good day, I should say.
Yep, we should have more today. Like you said, Richie's about to leave for practice, so we're going to try and wrap this up semi-quickly. We do have a few basketball things we want to cover. Obviously, yesterday we had a commitment from Austin Williams.
Yes.
Maybe that was Saturday, actually.
Yeah,
it was Saturday.
A month ago.
Yeah, technically a month ago, and that's why that podcast we recorded might have had some info that was a little out of date. We expected to release that pretty quickly, and it didn't happen. So we apologize for that. Austin Williams obviously brings an experienced guard who can step right in and start or play a ton of minutes for Rutgers next year. They also had Oskar Palmquist officially announced he was coming back to the roster. They've finally got 13 scholarship players on the team.
First time, long time.
Yeah, ahead of their trip they depart for tomorrow. Is there anything you wanted to hit on with those two things before we kind of discuss a little more Dylan Harper stuff?
No, I'm still pretty adamant. I think Austin will be a starter for the program. I think he's too good to keep him on the bench. He averaged, 17 last time he was fully playing? Mind you, it was Hartford, but he's proven that he can do it at that level. And I don't think that's that big of a jump. And I said it on the old podcast, and I'll say it again. That jump from Hartford to, mind you, old Hartford, not new Hartford. That's like D3 or whatever. From Hartford, I think it was American East, to the Big Ten level is not that crazy. And Quasi Yaboa did it. And yeah, I want to say when you make a jump like that, you probably go look at their numbers and probably cut it in half. And I'm still getting a solid 8-9 points out of the kid. Like that's pretty damn good. Especially when I have a Fernandez next to him, who's probably going to be the leading scorer if I had to guess. So I think that's a good get. And then getting Oskar back, everyone stop complaining. Stop saying, hey, we should have got Paul back. Like, no. It's number one, there's a huge difference between Paul and Oskar when it comes to team chemistry and just overall team morale. One's a real good team player. One's a great locker room presence. Everyone loves him. The other one, I'm not going to be making a hate fest on Paul, but I mean, he just wasn't a great locker room presence from what we were told. So you see it on the court too. He was yelling at teammates on the court. He was yelling at refs on the court. He was tripping people at one point. And Rutgers fans, I know you have sometimes the scarlet colored glasses, and you're like, yeah, he didn't really trip him, and it's like he kind of fucking full on put his leg out there. It was bad, but yeah, no, I think getting Oskar back's huge, not just from that perspective, but also you need a 4-man until Mag's fully healthy. Mag might not be back for until game 3 or 4. Could he play games 1 and 2? Probably, but I don't think he starts, or I don't even think he plays, to be honest with you. I think he's going to take a little bit to get back in the groove of things. So I really think that Oskar is going to be a significant player for this team, and God forbid you can get him to be a consistent 3-point shooter or outside shot. Having him drag someone out of the paint and letting Cliff go one-on-one with people, I take Cliff almost 95% of the time. Maybe against actually maybe 98% of the time.
I put him against anybody, even guys like Zach Edey, who are just kind of good defenders because they're so large.
I was going to
Cliff's
say him.
Way quicker. I don't know. Cliff's an elite college big man.
Yeah.
Especially defensively.
And if you saw what Rothstein said, he's like, Cliff's got a new bag of moves too. So I'm like, okay, I'm eager to see what this looks like. So
yeah, you got to hope that him training for the NBA draft and working, full time as a basketball player this offseason might have, developed some skills that maybe he didn't have fully developed while he was at Rutgers. So
yeah,
I do think we'll see a bit of a jump from him this year.
No, I think it'd be a huge jump. If he can do a pump fake too, I feel like he can get a lot of people jumping nowadays too. So
yep, exactly. Last thing I wanted to hit on is you obviously future cast Dylan Harper to Rutgers. May 25th, give or take? Who's counting? You had Jackson Collier come in. Yeah. Jackson Collier came in with his future cast, I believe, on July 12th, based on similar info you were hearing for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then this past weekend, I guess we can kind of chronologically go through it. Dylan posts something about needing an edit on Instagram. A few Duke mods ended up flipping their future casts from Duke to Rutgers. And then there seemed like there was an avalanche of future casts for Dylan to Rutgers. What changed this weekend? What happened? Fill everybody in.
If you're not first, you're last. Put it like that. In the wise words of Ricky Bobby. So basically Duke's punting. Duke's going elsewhere, or they're just going to change up the play call. Instead of going for Dylan Harper, they're going to switch up things. They're going to try to go somewhere else. Now, mind you, they might land Cooper Flagg, and he might reclass, which great for them. Duke does this every year. They don't really give a shit. But they just realized that they're out, and it sounds like Dylan's getting very, very close to making a decision. I've had people tell me the next couple weeks. I've had one person tell me within the next month. So based on that timeline, it sounds like it's coming up pretty quickly. It's going to be insane, and it just sounds like Dylan's telling people that he's coming to Rutgers. I know. Going this past weekend, he was at the Steph Curry elite camp with Ace Bailey on the same team as Ace Bailey. Now, these people at these camps aren't stupid. They're putting them on the same team. Then all of a sudden, he has the Under Armour event this week, and it's like, oh, wait, he's on the same team as Ace Bailey again? That's weird. And I found out, I was like, what was Dylan's last event? I think it was SummerSlam in New York City. Guess who else is going to SummerSlam in New York City? Ace Bailey. Ace Bailey. Like,
crazy.
Okay, like what something's adding up here, like a little bit. I know him and Ace were hanging out a lot at the elite camp this past weekend. I know I think they believe they were staying together as well. The two have become really close. They're like, I don't want to say best friends, but it's pretty damn close to that. They're as close as recruits as I've ever seen before. Like maybe as close as Gabriel-Winovich and AJ Serace, who moved across the country just to be with one another.
Wow.
Yeah, they are extremely close. They might be closer than that, to be honest. But these two have been talking nonstop. They're talking about Rutgers. It sounds like they're talking to other kids about Rutgers as well at these camps. So, mind you, these camps aren't just 2024s. They're 2025s, 26, blah, 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 et cetera. Some of these camps even have college kids, which is weird, but I don't know how that works. But yeah, I think it's all but said and done. It's just a matter of him putting it out there and putting the tweet in. We've been saying this for a while. He's been leaning Rutgers for a while, and I know people panicked when I put in the FutureCast and nothing happened after the next week, or next month, the next 3 months. Is that what it is now? Yeah, it's been 3 months. Wow, since our FutureCast. So it's huge, and it's only a matter of time till Rutgers has 1 and 2 in the country, which never thought I'd say before. It's kind of crazy.
It is a wild time to be a Rutgers fan. So just stay tuned because I'm hearing the same thing. I'm hearing it'll probably be in August at some point. Now, don't hold us to that schedule, but that's just what we're hearing right now. That is the latest intel. So if it doesn't happen, it could change. And that's with all recruiting stuff. So just be aware that this is the latest information we have. And this is coming from good sources. So it sounds like it is soon, but not necessarily tomorrow soon. And I would imagine that the staff wouldn't really want them committing while they're on the international trip. So I guess it's probably not going to happen in the next 2 weeks, if I had to guess.
Yeah, no, they're not going to put him on the Euro trip, or not let him commit, at least on the Euro trip. You want to save that news for either right before or right after. So they're leaving tomorrow, so I don't anticipate it happening today. Could it happen today? Maybe. Who the hell knows? But I probably would say it's probably going to happen after. So maybe, what is it, like a week or 2 weeks or something like that, they're away. So we'll wait and see what happens there. But that's pretty much it.
All right, guys. Well, thank you once again for listening. My dog's about to explode. Richie has to make to practice.
Yep.
So we will we'll sign it off today, a little shorter than normal and without the begging for ratings and reviews. But do it if you haven't. But stay tuned because we'll have at least 1 or 2 more episodes this week to discuss how training camp's going and the inevitable highlight that shows up on Twitter or Instagram of Cliff, embarrassing a 6'4" center in Dakar, Senegal. But for me and Richie, this has been another edition of the Night Report podcast. Signing off.